The Concordat of Sentient Species had been cataloging worlds for over 3 millennia, but planet XJ272 still managed to surprise them. Classified as a Category 5 world, the highest designation for planets harboring apex predators, it orbited a dying red giant in the Cretan Basin, a region of space where most sane species wouldn't dare to tread. The planet's surface was a maze of crystalline canyons, sulfurous hot springs, and shadows that seemed to move independently of any light source. Observation Station Epsilon 12 hung in geosynchronous orbit above the planet's northern hemisphere, its sensors trained on the movements below. The station was small, barely larger than a research vessel, but it was equipped with the most advanced xenobiology monitoring equipment the Concordat possessed. 3 Vexillian scientists, Dr. Lexi, Dr. Enva, and Dr. Qual, had been stationed here for the past 18 months, meticulously documenting the behavior patterns of the planet's most dangerous inhabitant, the Vexorian Shadow Stalker. Dr. Lexi adjusted her primary visual receptor as she peered into the main observation screen. Movement detected in Sector 7 Alpha. The stalker is hunting again. Predictable, muttered Dr. Enva, her 4 arms, working simultaneously across multiple control panels. 3rd hunt cycle this rotation. The creature's metabolic requirements are fascinatingly consistent. Dr. Qual, the youngest of the 3, hovered near the quantum scanner. Still no signs of higher intelligence beyond basic predatorial instinct. The Concordat classification stands firm, dangerous, but not sentient. The Shadow Stalker was a magnificent specimen, even by Category 5 standards. Roughly the size of a Terran elephant, but built like a predatory cat, it moved through the crystal formations with liquid grace. Its hide was covered in chromatophores that allowed it to blend seamlessly, with its environment becoming nearly invisible, except for the occasional glint of its 6 bone-white claws, or the pale luminescence of its 3 eyes. Alert! The station's AI announced in its characteristically calm tone. Unscheduled atmospheric entry detected. Vessel designation Terran Civilian Transport Registry, TCV 4429. Dr. Lexi's tendrils stiffened. Terrans! What are humans doing in this sector? Checking the manifest now. Dr. Enva reported her secondary arms flying across holographic displays. Single passenger, Alexander Novak, listed as a medic, former Terran Defense Force. A medic, Dr. Qual echoed disbelief coloring his translated words. On a Category 5 world, the human must be suicidal. They watched through the external cameras as the small transport vessel descended through the planet's atmosphere, its heat shields glowing cherry red. The landing was rougher than it should have been. The ship bounced twice off the crystalline surface, before coming to rest in a cloud of superheated dust about 12 kilometers from the stalker's current position. Should we initiate contact protocols? Dr. Qual asked. Negative, Dr. Lexi replied. We're here to observe, not interfere, though I admit watching a human become predator food wasn't on this cycle's research agenda. The transport's hatch opened with a hiss of escaping atmosphere, and a figure emerged. Even at distance, the human was clearly visible through their enhanced sensors. Alexander Novak appeared to be middle-aged by human standards, with graying hair and weathered features that spoke of years spent in harsh environments. What caught the Vexillian's attention, however, wasn't his appearance, but what he was carrying. Is that medical equipment? Dr. Enva asked, zooming in on the large pack the human had slung across his shoulders. Confirmed, Dr. Qual said, running spectral analysis on the pack's contents. Advanced trauma kits, surgical instruments, bioregeneration devices, and are those anesthetics? Why would someone bring medical supplies to a hunting ground? They continued to observe as the human began moving across the planet's surface. His movements were careful, but not fearful. He seemed to know exactly where he was going, checking a handheld device periodically and adjusting his heading. More disturbing still, his path was taking him directly toward the stalker's territory. The human is heading straight for the predator. Dr. Lexi observed, her tone flat with disbelief. Impossible, no species is that foolish, Dr. Enva protested. He must be lost. Negative, Dr. Quall reported studying the human's bio-readings. Heart rate is elevated but steady. No signs of panic or disorientation. He knows exactly where he's going. The shadow stalker had finished with its hunt, something that looked like a cross between a crystal formation and a mollusk. The predator was currently lying in a small alcove between two towering crystal spires, and the Vexillians could see immediately that something was wrong. One of its rear legs was bent at an unnatural angle, and there was a significant laceration along its left flank. Dark blue blood seeped from the wound, crystallizing as it hit the cold air. The stalker is injured, Dr. Lexi noted. Probably from its last hunt. Prey on this world is notoriously well defended. Which makes it even more dangerous, Dr. Enva added. Injured predators are unpredictable. We should warn the human. Our protocols are clear, Dr. Quall reminded them. Non-interference except in cases of sapient species conflict. Humans are not classified as a sapient species yet. Their concordant membership is still provisional. Dr. Lexi's skin flushed deep purple, a Vexillian expression of frustration. So, we're to watch a potentially valuable research subject walk to his death because of bureaucratic classifications. Before anyone could respond, their attention was drawn back to the planet's surface. The human had reached the edge of the stalker's territory and had stopped. He was no more than 50 meters from the creature's resting place. At this distance, the stalker would have already detected his presence through scent vibration and electromagnetic signature. Yet the human made no move to retreat. Instead, Alexander Novak set down his pack and began removing items from it. The Vexillians watched in stunned silence as he assembled what was unmistakably a field medical station. Surgical instruments glinted in the red light of the dying sun. Bioscanners were activated and calibrated. Anesthetic injectors were prepared and checked. By the 7 moons of Vexi, Dr. Enva whispered, he's planning to treat the creature. Ludicrous, Dr. Quall scoffed. No species would attempt such a thing with an apex predator. It goes against every evolutionary survival instinct. The shadow stalker had noticed the human's presence. Its chromatophores shifted from mottled gray and brown to aggressive reds and oranges. The 3 eyes fixed on the small figure with predatory intent. It rose slowly to its feet, favoring its injured leg, and began stalking toward the human. Alexander Novak looked up from his medical kit and saw the approaching predator. The Vexillians expected him to run, to scream, to show any normal reaction to imminent death. Instead, the human did something that challenged everything they thought they knew about interspecies behavior. He held up one hand in what appeared to be a greeting, and with the other, he gestured to his medical supplies. "I'm here to help," his voice came through the sensors, transmitted across the vacuum to the observation station. The words were in Standard Galactic, heavily accented but clear. The stalker stopped less than 10 meters away, its head tilted in what might have been confusion. The chromatophores continued their color display, cycling through various hues, as if the creature was experiencing conflicting emotions. "This is unprecedented," Dr. Lexi breathed. "The stalker isn't attacking." "Perhaps it doesn't recognize him as a threat," Dr. Quall suggested. "Humans are quite small compared to its usual prey." "No," Dr. Enva said, slowly studying the bio-readings from both beings. "Look at the pheromone analysis. The stalker is curious, and the human, his fear response is activated, but it's controlled. He's terrified, but functioning anyway." Alexander took a step forward, moving slowly and deliberately. He reached into his kit and withdrew a bioscanner, holding it where the creature could see it. The device hummed softly as it analyzed the stalker's wounds. "Compound fracture of the posterior femur," he said, apparently talking to himself as much as to the creature. "Deep laceration with potential organ involvement. Blood loss significant but not critical. You're hurting, aren't you?" The stalker's head lowered slightly, bringing its 3 eyes level with the human. The coloring on its hide had shifted to deep blues and purples, colors the Vexillians recognized from their studies as indicators of pain and uncertainty. "I need to scan you properly," Alexander continued, his voice calm and professional. "It will not hurt, I promise." He raised the scanner slowly, giving the creature time to react. When it didn't move away, he activated the device. The detailed scan took several minutes, during which both human and predator remained perfectly still. The only sounds were the soft whir of medical equipment and the distant whistle of wind through the crystal formations. "The internal damage is extensive," Alexander murmured, studying the scanner's results. "But treatable. I need to anesthetize you first. Will you trust me?" It was a question that seemed absurd to the watching Vexillians. How could a creature that had never encountered humans before understand concepts like trust? Yet, as they watched, the stalker lowered itself to the ground, its injured leg extended toward the human. Dr. Qual's skin had turned pale white with shock. "This can't be happening. It's anatomically impossible for these species to have prior contact. The Concordat would have records." "Perhaps," Dr. Lexi said thoughtfully, "we're witnessing the emergence of a new form of interspecies communication." Alexander knelt beside the massive predator and gently touched its flank. The creature's hide was warm beneath his hands, and he could feel the rapid heartbeat of a being in pain. He prepared an anesthetic injection, calibrated for the creature's estimated body mass and biochemistry, based on the bioscan results. "This will make you sleep," he explained, showing the creature the injection device. "When you wake up, you'll feel much better." The stalker watched with all three eyes as the human administered the anesthetic. Within minutes, its breathing slowed and deepened. The chromatophores faded to neutral grays and browns as consciousness slipped away. Dr. Enva was recording everything, her hands shaking with excitement. "The predator is allowing itself to be anesthetized by an unknown species. Every xenobiological principle suggests this should be impossible." "Maybe," Dr. Qual said slowly, "our principles are wrong." Alexander worked with the precision and confidence of someone who had performed field surgery countless times. He cleaned and debrided the wound, applied bioregenerative gel to accelerate healing, and set the fractured bone using a portable stabilization field. Throughout the procedure, he talked softly to the unconscious creature, explaining each step as if it could hear him. "You're a magnificent being," he said as he worked. "I've never seen anything quite like you. The way you move, the way your skin changes color, it's beautiful. I hope you understand that I mean you no harm." The surgery took nearly 4 hours. The Vexillians watched in fascination as the human worked, noting the care he took with each stitch, the gentle way he handled the creature's limbs, the periodic checks he made of its vital signs. This wasn't the behavior of a desperate man trying to avoid being eaten. This was the work of a dedicated healer. As the anesthetic began to wear off, Alexander stepped back, leaving his equipment within easy reach, but giving the creature space to wake up naturally. The stalker's eyes opened one by one, focusing first on the human, then on its bandaged wounds. It tried to stand, and found that the pain was gone. The leg that had been broken now supported its weight without difficulty. The laceration along its flank was sealed, and healing rapidly thanks to the bioregenerative treatment. The creature looked at Alexander for a long moment. Then, in a display that made the Vexillians on the observation station question everything they thought they knew about interspecies relations, the shadow stalker approached the human and gently touched his shoulder with its muzzle. "You're welcome," Alexander said softly, reaching up to touch the creature's face. "What should I call you?" "You remind me of midnight on Earth, all shadows and grace." "Midnight. Do you like that name?" The stalker Midnight seemed to consider this. Its chromatophores shifted to warm golds and greens, colors that none of the Vexillian scientists had seen in their 18 months of observation. "Those colors," Dr. Lexi said, "they're not in any of our behavioral analyses." "Because we've never seen the creature content before," Dr. Enva realized. All our observations have been of a creature in its natural state of alertness and potential aggression. We've never seen it happy. Dr. Quall was already composing reports in his mind. The Concordat will never believe this. A human has successfully treated and apparently bonded with a Category 5 apex predator. The implications for our understanding of interspecies relations are staggering. On the planet below, Alexander was packing up his medical equipment while Midnight watched with what could only be described as interest. When the human shouldered his pack and began walking toward the crystal canyons, the great predator fell into step beside him. "They're traveling together," Dr. Enva observed, hardly believing what she was seeing. "The human has gained a companion," Dr. Lexi agreed. "Or perhaps Midnight has gained a packmate." Their peaceful observation was interrupted by an urgent alert from the station's communications array. "Priority transmission from Concordat Central Command," the AI announced. Dr. Quall activated the main viewer, revealing the stern features of Admiral Korath, a Phalancian military officer whose reputation for aggressive intervention was well known throughout the Concordat. "Dr. Quall," the Admiral's voice boomed across the communication link. "We have detected unauthorized biological interaction on planet XJ272. Explain." "Admiral, we are observing a remarkable development in interspecies relations. A human medic has successfully treated an injured shadow stalker and appears to have formed some kind of bond with the creature." "Impossible and irrelevant," Admiral Korath replied curtly. "The human must be extracted immediately. We cannot allow contamination of our research subjects." Sir, with respect, the human poses no threat to our research. In fact, he has provided unprecedented data on shadow stalker behavior and physiology. The matter is not open for debate. Emergency Response Team 7 is being dispatched. They will arrive in 6 hours to separate the human from the creature and contain both for study. Acknowledge these orders." Dr. Lexi interrupted before Quall could respond. "Admiral, I must protest. What we're witnessing could revolutionize our understanding of interspecies cooperation. To interfere now would be—" "The Vexillian opinion has been noted and dismissed." Admiral Korath cut her off. "The human will be extracted. The creature will be studied. This transmission is concluded." The screen went dark, leaving the three scientists staring at each other in dismay. "We have to warn them," Dr. Enva said immediately. "Our orders are clear," Dr. Quall reminded them reluctantly. "Non-interference." "Our orders," Dr. Lexi said firmly, "did not account for this situation. Alexander Novak is not just any human. He's a medic who risked his life to help a creature most of the galaxy fears. And Midnight isn't just a predator anymore. They're partners." Before anyone could stop her, Dr. Lexi activated the emergency communication beacon and transmitted a message to Alexander's location. "Mr. Novak, this is Observation Station Epsilon 12. You are in immediate danger. A Concordat military team is en route to your location with orders to separate you from the creature and take you both into custody. You have approximately 6 hours. I suggest you find somewhere to hide." On the planet's surface, Alexander paused in his trek and looked up at the signal emanating from the glowing communication device he'd pulled from his pack. Midnight noticed his change in demeanor and moved closer, its chromatophores shifting to alert oranges and reds. "Well," my friend Alexander said, scratching behind what he hoped was Midnight's equivalent of an ear, "it seems our peaceful walk is about to become more interesting. How do you feel about visitors?" Midnight's response was to bare its claws and release a low, rumbling sound that Alexander assumed was its version of a growl. "My thoughts exactly," Alexander said, shouldering his pack. "Come on. I know these crystal formations better than I let on. Let's see if we can find somewhere defensible." 6 hours later, Emergency Response Team 7 arrived in a blaze of thruster fire and military efficiency. The team consisted of 12 Phalancian soldiers equipped with heavy weapons containment fields and enough firepower to level a small city. Their commander, Captain Zarn, was a veteran of numerous xenobiological containment operations and had no patience for scientific niceties. "Oh, scan and locate," he barked to his team as they disembarked. "Two targets, one human, one shadow stalker. Rules of engagement stun the human full containment protocols for the creature." What they found when they reached the location of the last known contact was unexpected. Alexander and Midnight were standing in a small clearing, surrounded by towering crystal formations. They weren't hiding. They weren't running. They were waiting. "This is Captain Zarn of Concordant Emergency Response Team 7, the captain announced through his suit's external speakers. "Humans, step away from the creature and surrender for processing." Alexander looked at the assembled soldiers and their weapons, then at Midnight, who stood beside him with chromatophores blazing in aggressive display. "I'm afraid I can't do that, Captain," Alexander replied calmly. "Midnight isn't a specimen or a research subject. He's my patient and my companion. I won't abandon him to become a lab rat." "The creature is a Category 5 predator," Captain Zarn responded. "It poses an extreme danger to all sentient life. Stand down now, or we will use force." "You know," Alexander said, reaching into his medical pack, "in all my years as a medic, I've learned something important. The most dangerous creatures are often the ones who are hurt and afraid. Midnight here was both when I found him. Now he's neither." "Which one of us do you think is more dangerous?" To demonstrate his point, Alexander pulled out a small device and activated it. Immediately the air around him and Midnight began to shimmer with the distinctive glow of a personal shield generator. Captain Zarn's tactical display immediately lit up with warnings. "Hostile barrier detected. Combat shields activated on targets." "That's not a combat shield." Dr. Lexi's voice crackled over the emergency frequency. "It's medical quarantine field designed to protect patients during treatment." "Dr. Lexi." Alexander's voice came through the communication channel. "I hope you're watching this. Midnight wasn't the only patient I came here to treat." Before anyone could ask what he meant, Midnight released a sound unlike anything the assembled soldiers had heard. It wasn't a roar or a growl. It was a complex harmonic call that seemed to resonate through the crystal formations themselves. The response was immediate and overwhelming. From every crevice, every shadow, every hidden place in the crystal maze, shadow stalkers began to emerge. Not just one or two, but dozens of them. The Vexillian scientists had been wrong. The stalkers weren't solitary creatures. They were pack hunters who had simply chosen to hunt alone until now. Multiple Category 5 contacts. One of the soldiers reported, his voice tight with fear. "I count at least 20, possibly more." But these weren't aggressive predators moving in for an attack. They were wounded. Each stalker that emerged bore injuries, broken bones, infected wounds, parasitic infestations, degenerative diseases. This wasn't a pack responding to a threat. It was a gathering of the sick and wounded, responding to the call of someone who had proven he could heal. "Brilliant," Dr. Enva whispered from the observation station. "He's not just Midnight's healer. He's become the pack's medic." Alexander looked at the assembled soldiers and their weapons, then at the growing crowd of injured predators surrounding them. "Gentlemen," he said quietly, "I came here to establish a field clinic. These creatures have been suffering from injuries and diseases that their natural healing can't address. I've spent the last 6 hours treating them, and Midnight has been helping me communicate with the others." "Impossible," Captain Zarn protested. "Shadow stalkers don't cooperate with other species." "You're right," Alexander agreed. "They don't cooperate with other species. But they do understand gratitude, and they understand protection." As if responding to some unseen signal, the stalkers moved closer, forming a protective circle around Alexander and Midnight. Their chromatophores displayed a unified pattern of deep blues and greens, the colors of loyalty and protection. "Captain," one of the soldiers reported nervously, "our weapons are designed for single-target containment. With this many creatures and at this close range, we'd be endangering our own people," Captain Zarn concluded. He studied the situation for a moment, then activated his communication channel. Command, this is Team 7. Situation has developed beyond initial parameters. Request guidance. While they waited for a response, Alexander continued his work. With practiced efficiency and Midnight's help in communicating with the other stalkers, he moved from creature to creature, treating injuries and ailments that had been festering for who knew how long. The soldiers watched in amazement as each treated stalker joined the protective circle around the human medic. "Dr. Lexi," Alexander called out, as he bandaged a particularly nasty laceration on a smaller stalker. "Are you recording this?" "Every moment," she replied. "Good. Make sure the Concordat sees what happens when you choose cooperation over containment." Admiral Korath's response when it came was predictably furious. "Captain Zarn, you will implement containment protocols immediately. Use whatever force necessary." "Sir," Captain Zarn replied carefully, "we're outnumbered 30-1 by Category 5 predators. Any aggressive action on our part will likely result in total team casualties." Unacceptable. The human must be contained. It was Alexander who ended the standoff. He stood up from treating his latest patient and addressed Captain Zarn directly. "Captain, I understand you have orders. But let me ask you something. What's more valuable to the Concordat 1 human medic in a lab, or proof that humans can establish peaceful, beneficial relationships with Category 5 predators?" Before Captain Zarn could answer, Midnight moved to Alexander's side and fixed the captain with all three eyes. The massive predator's meaning was clear. Without any need for translation, "You will not take him." "Command," Captain Zarn said, finally. "I'm declaring this a non-viable extraction. The human appears to have integrated with the local ecosystem in a manner that makes separation impossible without unnecessary casualties." The communication channel crackled with Admiral Korath's fury, but before he could respond, another voice cut in, older, calmer, and carrying unmistakable authority. "This is Chancellor Wythak of the Concordat High Council," the new voice announced. "Captain Zarn, you are to stand down immediately. All teams are to withdraw to a safe distance and observe only." "Chancellor," Admiral Korath's voice was filled with confusion. "I have been monitoring this situation, Admiral. What we are witnessing is unprecedented in the annals of interspecies contact. Mr. Novak has achieved in 6 hours what our xenobiologists have failed to accomplish in decades of study: peaceful, beneficial contact with Category 5 predators." Alexander looked up at the sky, knowing the Concordat forces were listening. "Chancellor, I came here because I heard that shadow stalkers were suffering from diseases that your observation protocols prevented you from treating. I'm a medic. I see suffering, I treat it. It's not complicated." "Mr. Novak," Chancellor Wythak replied, "the Concordat formally requests that you consider a position as our first interspecies medical specialist. Your methods could revolutionize how we approach contact with dangerous species." "I'll consider it," Alexander said, grinning as Midnight nuzzled against his shoulder. "But I come as a package deal. Midnight and his pack are not research subjects, they're partners. And if you want my help, you respect that." "Agreed. Captain Zarn, establish a perimeter at 10 kilometers. Emergency Response Team 7 is hereby reassigned to protective detail for our new specialist and his colleagues." As the military forces withdrew, the shadow stalkers began to disperse, but not before each one approached Alexander in what appeared to be a gesture of gratitude. Some touched him gently with their muzzles. Others simply stood near him for a moment before vanishing back into the crystal maze. Dr. Lexi, Dr. Enva, and Dr. Qual requested permission to shuttle down to the surface. They found Alexander setting up a more permanent medical station in a natural clearing, surrounded by crystal formations that sparkled like stained glass windows in the red sunlight. "Dr. Novak," Dr. Lexi said as she approached, "what you've accomplished here will be studied for centuries. You've proven that cooperation is possible between species that were thought to be incompatible." Dr. Alexander replied as he calibrated a bioscanner. "With respect, You were studying predators, like they were specimens in a zoo. I approached them as patients who needed help. The only difference between what I did and what you've been doing is that I believe they could be more than what they appeared to be." Dr. Enva watched Midnight, who was lying contentedly nearby, his wounds fully healed and his chromatophores displaying peaceful greens and blues. "The medical implications alone are staggering. Your techniques for treating non-human physiology, the way you adapted human medical technology for alien biology." "The techniques aren't the important part," Alexander interrupted gently. "The important part is seeing them as individuals worthy of care. Once you do that, the rest follows naturally." Dr. Quall looked around at the crystal formations, where other stalkers could occasionally be glimpsed in the shadows. "They'll all return, won't they, when they need treatment?" "Some will," Alexander agreed. "And I'll be here. Midnight and I will be here." As if in response to his name, Midnight rose and padded over to Alexander, settling down beside him with a contented rumble. The great predator's chromatophores shifted through a slow spectrum of warm colors: contentment, affection, partnership. "The Concordat will want a full report," Dr. Lexi said. "Then tell them this," Alexander replied, stroking Midnight's hide. "The universe is full of creatures we label as dangerous as monsters, as predators to be feared. But if you approach them with healing, instead of weapons, with cooperation, instead of competition, with respect, instead of domination, you might find that the monsters are just as capable of friendship as any of us." 3 months later, the Concordat officially established the first interspecies medical corps, with Alexander Novak as its chief instructor. Applications flooded in from across the galaxy, as being trained as professional friend-makers to planetary apex predators became one of the most sought-after career paths in the Concordat. The observation station was expanded into a full research facility, with Alexander's clinic at its heart. Shadow stalkers became regular visitors, some staying for extended treatment, others simply stopping by for what appeared to be social visits with the strange human who had become their pack's healer. Dr. Lexi, Dr. Enva, and Dr. Quall published a series of papers that revolutionized xenobiology, titled "Beyond Classification: Approaching Apex Predators as Individuals." Their work became required reading for all xenobiological research teams. Admiral Korath was reassigned to administrative duties. And every evening, as the red sun of XJ-272 set over the Crystal Canyons, Alexander Novak and his companion Midnight would walk the paths between the formations, the human carrying his medical bag and the shadow stalker padding silently beside him, its chromatophores glowing with colors of contentment that had never been seen before, because no one had ever given a shadow stalker a reason to be truly happy. The Concordat protocols were updated to include a new classification for Category 5 worlds, transport stations equipped with specialized medical personnel recommended when establishing contact with apex predator species. It was a small change in bureaucratic language, but it represented a fundamental shift in how the galaxy approached the dangerous and unknown. Sometimes the greatest discoveries came not from studying life, but from choosing to heal it. And in the crystal canyons of XJ-272, a human medic and his shadow stalker companion continued their work, proving every day that the line between predator and friend was often just a matter of perspective and the willingness to reach out with healing hands instead of weapons. The galaxy was becoming a less dangerous place, one patient at a time.